The scream from the wedding ground spread through the village faster than harmattan fire. Before sunset, everyone was talking about the dead chicken. Some said the widow had tried to poison her new husband. Others insisted the ancestors were warning the village against the marriage. By nightfall, the story had grown so much that people claimed 3 chickens had died instead of 1. The widow sat alone inside her hut, listening to the distant voices outside. Through the small window, she could see villagers gathered in groups, pointing toward her compound. They had done the same thing after her first husband died, and again after the second. To them, she was no longer a woman. She was a mystery wrapped in fear. A sudden knock landed on her door. Her heart jumped. When she opened it, she found the groom standing there. His face was pale. "I need the truth," he said quietly. His eyes dropped to the folded letter in her hand. "The same letter you've hidden for 3 years." The widow tightened her grip on it. The letter had belonged to her second husband. It was found beneath his pillow the morning after his death. She had read it hundreds of times, yet the final sentence still filled her with dread. The groom took a step closer. What was so dangerous that 2 men died for it? For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she unfolded the worn paper and stared at the words that had haunted her for years. At the bottom of the page, written in hurried handwriting, was a warning. "If I die, do not trust anyone on the village council." The widow slowly raised her eyes, because one of those council members was already walking toward her house, and he had just seen the letter. The widow's hands trembled as she folded the letter and hid it inside her wrapper. Outside, the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. The groom turned toward the window and saw an elderly figure moving slowly through the darkness. It was Chief Adewale, the oldest member of the village council and one of the most respected men in the community. "Hide the letter," the groom whispered. The widow didn't move. For years she had lived in fear. For years she had buried questions along with her husband's. She was tired of hiding. A moment later, the chief entered the
My daughter, he said warmly. "The whole village is worried about you." His smile looked kind, but something in his eyes felt cold. The widow forced herself to remain calm. "You came late, Chief." "I heard about the wedding incident," he replied. "People are talking. I thought you might need advice." As he spoke, his gaze drifted briefly toward the folded. The widow noticed, and for the first time, she remembered something she had ignored years ago. The night before her second husband died, he had returned home frightened. He locked every door, closed every window, and refused to sleep. When she asked what was wrong, he said only one thing: "If anything happens to me, stay away from the council." At the time, she thought fear was making him irrational. Now, standing before Chief Adewale, those words felt different, dangerous. The chief stepped closer. "Some secrets are better left buried," he said softly. The widow felt a chill run through her body, because those were the exact words her first husband had spoken 3 days before he died. And suddenly, she realized something terrifying. Both husbands had died after warning her about the same thing, but neither had ever told her why. That night, the widow could not sleep. The chief's words echoed in her mind long after he left. Some secrets are better left buried. It sounded less like advice and more like a warning. As rain tapped softly against the roof, she unfolded the letter again.
Most of the writing had faded over the years, but one section remained clear. Her second husband's handwriting became shaky near the end, almost desperate. I followed the old records beneath the council hall. What I found explains everything. If they discover I know the truth, they will silence me.
Just as they silenced others.
The widow's heart pounded. Others? She had always focused on her husband's death. She had never stopped to ask whether there were more victims before him. Then she noticed something she had somehow missed all these years. A small symbol drawn beside the final sentence. 3 interlocking circles. Her breath caught. She had seen that symbol before. Not once, twice. The first time was hidden inside a notebook that belonged to her first husband. She remembered finding it after his funeral. At the time, she thought it was meaningless. The second time was carved into a wooden box he kept locked beneath their bed. A box that vanished the same night he died. Suddenly, pieces that never fit together began moving into place. Both husbands had discovered something. Both had been frightened. Both had possessed the same symbol. And both were dead. The next morning, before sunrise, the widow climbed into the attic of her late husband's abandoned storage shed. Dust covered everything. Broken farming tools lay scattered in corners. Then she found it. An old notebook wrapped in cloth. Her first husband's notebook. With trembling hands, she opened it. Most pages contained ordinary records and farm expenses. Then she reached the final page. The blood drained from her face. There, drawn repeatedly across the paper, was the same symbol. 3 interlocking circles. Beneath it was a single sentence. The council is not what it appears to be. Before she could read further, a loud crash came from outside. She froze. Footsteps. Several of them.
Someone had entered the compound, and judging by the voices, they were heading straight for the shed. The widow quickly closed the notebook and pressed herself against the wall of the shed. The footsteps grew louder. 3 men. She recognized one of the voices immediately. Chief Adewale. What if she found it? Another man asked nervously. Then we find it before she understands what it means, the chief replied. The widow's heart nearly stopped. They weren't looking for her. They were looking for the notebook. A beam of lantern light flashed through a crack in the wooden wall. The men entered the shed. The widow crouched silently behind stacked baskets, barely daring to breathe. For several minutes, they searched through boxes, sacks, and old tools. Then something unexpected happened. One of the men spoke. I still don't understand why we're protecting him after everything he did. The chief's expression hardened. Because if the truth comes out, this village will tear itself apart. The widow frowned. Him?
Who were they talking about? For years, she had believed Chief Adewale was the mastermind behind her husband's deaths. But now it sounded as though he was protecting someone else. A new doubt entered her mind. Had she been chasing the wrong person all along? Then the third man spoke. The first husband discovered the records, and the second found the box, another replied. The widow felt a chill. The box. The missing wooden box. So it had been real. But neither of them knew who was behind it, the third man continued. Chief Adewale lowered his voice. Exactly. They died searching for the wrong enemy. The widow's eyes widened. The wrong enemy? Every theory she had built over the years began collapsing. If Chief Adewale wasn't the true danger, then who was? The men eventually left the shed empty-handed. The moment their footsteps faded, the widow reopened the notebook. This time, she turned to the page hidden beneath the final entry. A folded piece of paper slipped out. It was older than the letter, older than both marriages. The paper contained a list of names. Some belonged to villagers she recognized. Others belonged to people who had died years ago. At the very top was a title written in faded ink. Children of the River Oath. The widow stared in confusion. Then her eyes moved to the last name on the list. The paper slipped from her fingers. Because the final name wasn't Chief Adewale. It wasn't a council member. It wasn't even a village elder. It was the name of the man she was supposed to marry that morning. The Groom.
And suddenly, every warning, every death, and every secret pointed in a direction she had never imagined. The widow read the name again, then a third time. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped the paper.
It had to be a mistake. The groom's name could not be on that list. Not after everything he had done for her. Not after the months he had spent defending her when the village called her cursed. Yet the ink was unmistakable. His name stood among dozens of others beneath the title, Children of the River Oath. For several minutes, she sat frozen inside the shed. Then, memories began returning. Small things she had ignored. Questions he never answered properly. The strange way he always changed the subject whenever her dead husbands were mentioned. The fact that he had appeared in her life shortly after she started asking questions again. The more she remembered, the more uneasy she became. That evening, she agreed to meet him near the old riverbank.
The same river where village legends claimed an oath had been sworn generations ago. The groom arrived smiling, but the moment he saw her face, his smile faded. "You found something," he said quietly. The widow pulled out the list.
His expression changed instantly. Not surprise, fear. For the first time since she met him, he looked genuinely afraid. "Tell me the truth," she demanded. The groom lowered his head. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "My father was part of the River Oath." The widow's stomach tightened. "My grandfather, too." The evening wind suddenly felt colder. "But I never joined them," he continued quickly. "I spent years trying to uncover what they were hiding." The widow stared at him. She wanted to believe him, but she had trusted before, and twice she had ended up standing beside a grave. Then the groom revealed something that shattered everything she thought she knew. "The men who killed your husbands are already dead." The widow blinked. "What?" "The people you're hunting were punished years ago." Confusion flooded her mind. If that was true, then who was still protecting the secret? The groom looked toward the river. His face had gone pale. Because the most dangerous person was never one of them.